In the last video, I showed you how to use metadata to control geometry and material themes. I imported some various wheel options, and you may have noticed a chain link icon in the scene graph. In this video, I thought I'd go over the basics of file referencing. This might be useful in collaborating with your team and communicating changes that need to be updated in your VRED file. On this left side session, I have a vehicle plus an additional set of rims which were imported as an FBX format file, which is not the native VPB VRED format. The session on the right hand has just those wheels imported. And you'll notice there's a green and white chain link, which means there is a reference to this original source file, and it is up to date since it's green. So let's say someone is working on these wheels, and it could be a wire, it could be a number of formats, and they make a change. It could be a geometry change. In this case, I'll just go and make it a different material. And I'll create a brand new unicolor car paint. Just give it a darker color for recognition. And I'll replace the current material. So there has been some change. And now if I export this part and save it right over the original file, you'll see that this changed to orange, which means it's out of date. Some change has occurred. I can also see all this information in my reference editor, and it says out of date. So to make it up to date, you need to go to References and then Re-import Source selected. So I'll just go ahead and do that. So taking a closer look, I'm going to see and make sure that this is the correct material type. And when I look at it, it's called unicolor car paint. Over here it's a unicolor car paint. Over here it's a plastic. Non-native formats will come in as plastics, something to be aware of. But there is a way around that. Taking a look in my asset manager, there are a number of car paints in here. And if I give it the exact same name as one existing in this library, then it will find it and apply that true light material. So let me go back over here and rename this to Paint Black. And then I'm going to go ahead and export this again. Save it right over itself. I got a little warning here, and I see that it's orange, so it's out of date. Now this time, when I go to References, Re-import Source, I'm going to instead use from File, which means it's using whatever the source is. I'm going to tell it to apply from Asset Manager. Now I see it looks different. Let's double check by going to my materials, and it is a actual unicolor car paint now. So this is one way to work, but you may be thinking, I don't want to keep saving over my files and losing my work. So I'll show you another approach to working collaboratively with your teammates who are updating files, and an easy way to get these updated files into your scene. So let's imagine that you have different people working on all these different components of your vehicle. And each time they save a change, you want to be notified so that you can replace it and get the latest, greatest data into your master file. You can create what are called smart references to do this. So looking in my reference editor, I have a source reference, which is the wheels that I brought in. It's up to date. And if I want to make all these parts that are the native VPB format into smart references that will notify me when they change, and my other visualization specialists are working on those. I can select them all, go to References, and convert to Smart New. It's going to give me a warning, and this is basically saying that I need to save the file in the next step. So I'll just say OK. And here in the Smart References column, you'll see all of these are added, but right now they're unsaved. So I just need to save my file, and I'll save as. It can be a different version. And next it's going to ask me where I want all these individual files saved, in addition to the master file. So I'll just point to this folder where I want everything to reside and say OK. Now everything is referenced and up to date. So why would I work this way? Not only might it ease communication, but if I take a look at my file size, the original master file was 471 megs, and then when I resaved it as master 2, it dropped way down to 140 megs. So what's actually happening is it's separating the master from all these individual components. So if you add up these components plus the master file, it should equal roughly 471 megs. And this might be helpful if you're working with really large files, and it's just faster as you're saving, importing, exporting if you're working with smaller file size. So this time let me import one of these components, and I can open it since it's the native file format, and I'll just bring in, say, the wheels. And notice that these all have slightly different naming conventions. But for smart references to work, you do need a number in there, and I'll show you how to set that up in your preferences in a moment. So open these wheels. And let's say I just want to create some kind of change. I'll just change the detail color of these wheels. And then I'll just save over it. But what I need to do is change the numeric extension. So this time when I hit File, Save As, I'm going to change it from 1 to 2. And you'll see it's out of date. Now to set this up, to make sure you get these notifications, you need to go to your Preferences, and under References, Update Monitoring, you do need to enable in order to get these notifications. Now if you don't want to have to rely on someone saving over the component file, you can set up what's called revision monitoring. So I chose numeric revision, and when you click on any of these, it will give you an expression. And if you hover over this field, you can get a cheat sheet of custom expressions you can write yourself. So what this one is telling me is that when I change the number in a sequence to the next number, it's going to recognize this. And you can even test out your text to see what it is considering, and what is green, it's recognizing that this number sequence. So make sure you hit Apply and Save. So now when you're ready to update this, you'll go back to References, and this time go to replace Smart by Revision. And here you can choose the latest or a specific number. So I'll choose latest. And it replaced the geometry, the materials, everything from my Smart file is now up to date, and you can see the color change has occurred. I'll do that one more time just in case you didn't get it. So I have this interior. We'll say another colleague is working on the interior. And maybe I just want to, again, do some sort of material change. And instead, let's make these parts white. And I'll save my file again with a different name, going up in my numbers to 2. So I get to keep 1 and 2, both versions. And now it tells me I'm out of date. So I just go back to References, replace Smart by Revision. This time I'll choose number 2. And then you can see in my interior, the change did come through. A few other things you can do in here is you can convert your source file, which is the non-native format, to a Smart reference by going to Create Smart New. Of course, I need to save the file. And you can also remove the reference altogether by saying Remove. You should be aware that if you move or delete one of these referenced files, then it will be missing in your master file. So I'm going to move this interior into a different location. And then I'm going to reopen my file that I've already saved. And you can see that my interior is now missing. I can just move it back. Fortunately, I still have it. And reopen my file, and it should be there this time. So be aware of where all your parts and pieces are so that everything in the puzzle comes together as expected. There are some limitations in working with references that you might want to be aware of. If you're working with animation and clips in your source files, you may find that they don't stick in the clip editor and will have to be dragged in again from the curve editor once you save and reopen that master file. So a workaround is to try to keep your animation clips in your master file. And just remember that when you make changes to that master file, those changes will not show up in the source files. It is omnidirectional. So once again, thanks again for watching, and I hope that me explaining things in my words helps you understand things a little bit more clearly, and that you can implement these workflows into your pipeline.